All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome one and welcome all into IA Baseball High and Tights edition of the Prospect Planner. That's right, it's the pursuit of the college game beyond the baseball diamond. A lot of cool things here and there that happen. And man, after a little bit of a break, we're back at it, ready and rearing to go. As always, make sure to check out the great folks at RDA Financial who make it possible. Just great people as well. Great financial sense, obviously, but what also you get is you get people in your community. They're there, they're a part of it, they know what's going on. So it's more than just going somewhere. It's going to a friend, right? That's really kind of what you're getting out of here. People who know what you're going through, know the community. It's not robotic. It's really, truly a great time. So make sure to check them out today at RDA Financial online or wherever you can get them. Give them a call in store. Hey, however you get the chance, get there now. And as always, we go ahead and the show again is one where it's all about the pursuit of the game here, Iowa based. And hey, if anyone has any thoughts or more, hit us up, let us know. We'd love to hear from you as well. But joining me, as always, partner in crime throughout this Prospect Planner, the one and only Chad Erickson of RDA Financial joining us here. And Chad, as always, happy to have you here. And as we get ready to go, this is certainly, we're getting towards the holidays. Everything's kind of getting, we're getting towards that part of the year. It's still the deep, dark off season, but I mean, we're still surviving here.
You bet. Good to be back, Andrew. It's been a little bit of a while here, but happy to get back online and discuss a few things with you.
Well, today what I want to go ahead and discuss a couple things. One, we are going to go ahead and discuss the Hall of Fame ballot. We're going to make it MLB edition just a little bit as we go through some of the new
Right.
guys, new faces, and some of the old that are still on the ballot here. I also want to talk just a little bit about really for all those prospects out there, keeping your eyes open, right? Keeping your thoughts and everything open towards the prospect, even if you think you're going to go a direction, keep your eyes open and also realize that these programs they have to do their job. They have things that they've got to do, and they have needs that they have to meet as well. So, with that, again, Chad, I want to dive into that really quickly, then get to our Hall of Fame ballots here as we're going to kind of dissect that here on the show. But first and foremost, the question that I did want to bring to you here, Chad, is, I mean, you've gone through the process. You've seen a lot of other dads and parents, I should say, in general, go through the process. And one thing that I am starting to see now, and we're seeing it across all sports, really. It's not just baseball, but we're starting to see more and more guys decommit from earlier commitments. And what we're seeing now, in particular, are those guys who have committed before the new recruiting rules were in place, have been established, right? So you're getting guys like, say, for example, Tucker Long, who had committed to Iowa earlier and before the new recruiting rule, which you have to wait until August 1st of your junior year to sign or commit, I should say, or to have any connection with and then again D1 programs at the very least here. And also you're seeing, again, he's just one of many that you're starting to see that happen with. So I just want to say, first off, Chad, this seems like a very different atmosphere. Now, I know that you and your son had gone through, again, your every journey is unique, but man, I think we're starting to see a little bit of, I think, the last of what may become of the old recruiting rules, right? I think we're starting to see that go away, and we're starting to see guys. I think everyone's starting to see the rhyme behind the reason here, or the reason behind the rhyme, I should say, as to why the August 1st. But what's your take when you see a lot of these guys start to decommit, and knowing that you and your son have gone through a similar process?
Yeah, so I think earlier on, under the old rules, it was a lot easier for somebody to say, well, I'm going to go to school A, and so I'm just gonna commit myself to school A, and
Mm-hmm.
they declare that they're committed to that school, um, and then more time passes, they have an opportunity to do more due diligence, and they realize, well, maybe it is a better fit if I go to school B, for
Yep.
instance. And so these kids who are seniors now are in that group where maybe they committed earlier in their high school career, and they're going, okay, well, maybe this isn't quite right for me. Maybe it isn't the fit that I thought it was, because I've had more opportunities to talk to other coaches. I've had more time to think about where it is that I'm going to go.
Yep.
So, probably what you'll see going forward with these new rules is potentially less kids decommitting,
Yeah.
right? Because they didn't commit as early as they used to. You know, we've seen kids even in Iowa commit in their freshman year, and you go, "Whoa, there's a whole lot of stuff you don't even know, and you're committing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Have you? I hope you went to a camp at that school at least, because you can do that, but you can't have an official visit.
Yeah.
So how do you know as a freshman, right?
Exactly.
Um, and so due diligence is key. And even when you think you're doing all the proper due diligence, there's always going to be something big, small, in between that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find out about the program that you've been studying. There are going to be unexpected things that are going to happen, good and bad, when
Exactly.
you go to when you actually get on campus and you start working in the environment that you agreed to work in,
And I
right?
think, yeah, I think you are as spot on with that. And it just is, it's an experience thing. I have been, you and I have been very big on what's the experience that someone has to give them weight when they talk about something, right? That's an example. If I'm talk if like the coaches clinic coming up here, you got all these speakers coming up there. What gives them the volume to speak on this? Because they've experienced it. And it's just unfortunate you don't experience recruiting until you're in it, right? You don't get a precursor towards that. And it's just a whole different beast. And I think one thing that I I like now I like is that kids aren't, I want to say, they aren't afraid to say, hey, well, maybe I'm not, maybe this isn't the right fit, and like you said, school A may have reached out first, but school B or C or D may be a better fit in the end. And doing the due diligence, and I think a lot of schools go, we respect that. We respect that you have your right to do things. But I also think here, Chad, there's also that part from the school side that nobody should look at that and demonize them at all. Because in the end, I had the chance to talk with Marty Sutherland a while back, and he goes, that I don't like going out and recruiting freshmen, sophomores. I like to watch them develop. I keep my eye on a lot of them, but there, like you said, there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to underclassmen in high school. You just don't know how things are going to transpire. 4 years can make a huge difference. 3 years can make a huge difference. But in the end, the industry was, there's somebody going after, these eighth grades, freshmen, sophomores to be competitive. And this was back before the new rule, right? You know, to be competitive, you had to stay in line with what everyone else is doing. So schools had to go out there and say, "Hey, we want to commit. We want you on. We want to commit you," and then that happens, and but it's not necessarily the school going out and trying to make anything bad or ruin anything, right? In the end, they got to get this player to be top notch. So they're going to do all they can, or should anyway, to make this player at the top of his game. But again, programs have to do. They have jobs that they have to do. They have needs that they need to have met. So in the end, I think that's where you kind of get that double edged sword. But doing the due diligence, just because you commit, I think you still, like you were saying, have to view the world out there, because you never know what you're going to get. You never know what might happen. Coaches come and go all the time. Different things happen, and you might find that, hey, you know, I feel more comfortable being away from home, or vice versa. I don't feel comfortable going away from home. But like you said, you have to experience it. And so that's where I think when you dive into it, it's just part of the game. I think a lot of parents get too, I guess, spooked on this here, Chad, and that's where I wanted to get your take on here. I think parents get spooked. Hey, you got your offer. Hey, stick with that. You got to stay. But then again, did you do your due diligence when you got a guy out in another college B going, hey, we like you as well. We didn't get the chance to see you before you committed.
Yeah, I think timing plays a huge role in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes players are going to have really good timing where everything just falls nicely into place, and then you have other players that the timing's not good. It's far from perfect, and you have to be willing to be flexible and adjust. And I think things are easier when you're not a scholarship player,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot easier to carry on other conversations and maybe maneuver from school A to school B. I know it's more difficult when you're committing and you're getting paid,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Then you have a lot of restrictions that are placed on you, more so than a player who's committing, who doesn't have that scholarship in their back pocket, right?
Yeah, and we're not
And
talking
so,
NIL. We're not. I mean, everybody out there, we're not. I don't think we dip into that at all here. Again, as we kind of go through it, and I think Chad, one of the things here is as we as we all look at this, it's important to know that I different things come up, right? But again, we're not talking NIL here, and that's a whole nother ballgame, right, Chad?
right. Yeah, that's an entirely different discussion, and pooling NIL money and things like that. I mean, that's something that I think even the schools at this point are still trying to figure out. Give us a few more years, and I bet you we've got that figured out. However, uh, when it comes to scholarship money for players, and that commitment process, it gets more difficult when there's money that's being spoken for,
Yep.
and backing out of a commitment once you have scholarship money that's been pledged to you, right?
Yeah.
Um, Not saying it doesn't happen or that it's impossible, but it makes the process more difficult.
And it really is important to note here with that schools, they have to go out and they pledge dollars to you with those scholarships, like you're saying. They have to go out like that. And I think in the world now where we're in with the transfer portal and all that, I I I think athletes have to look at that and say, hey, it's a two-way street. If kids could not have to honor their scholarship without penalty, I think that the university should be able to, and programs should be able to operate in the same way. And ultimately, a lot of times they do. In a lot of instances, that is the case. So, it. it's not. This isn't a hey the big bad machines coming after you kind of conversation. This is simply you reality of it, And Chad, you have been a big proponent of that. Reality waits for nobody. You have to understand that. You have to understand what programs offer, what they bring to the table, what they don't bring to the table. And it's easy to get lost in if your son or daughter gets committed early, right? That's thrilling. That's exciting. You have somebody saying, "Hey, you can make it at the college level, whatever division that is, at whatever that may be." Someone's coming to you and saying that, and it's exciting. But at the same time, yeah, we're starting to see. We've been over the last couple of years seeing, well, that may not be all the greatest thing to go early. But again, it's the nature of the beast. Things happen. And in the end, it is best to keep calm with it. And because gosh, Chad, I know it had to have been a little bit frustrating with you sometimes going through and going, man, what is the right step? Is there a right? Is there a wrong? I mean, in the end, there's about 70,000 ways that you could take a direction. And who knows if it's right or wrong sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know until you get there. The best thing that you can do is just do your school visits. How are the coaches interacting with your child? Uh, you know, maybe talking with the other players
Mm-hmm.
is a good idea. And I'm not talking about talking with the star players of the team. Talk with the guys who are playing a role.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because those are the guys that are in a program and they're there because they want to. Let me think about how I should say this. Those are guys that are there for the love of the game,
Mm-hmm.
right? They
Yes.
might not be your scholarship player. They might not be the player that's on the field all the time. So they are there because they want to be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think those guys will have more to say than your star players who are on scholarship who get a lot of attention and get a lot more resources put behind them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I
I think you're going to get better answers from those other players. Now, if you're a star player and you're walking into a program, and talk to the star players, but also talk to those other players. Talk to a player who got injured. Find a player who got injured. How did the program treat that injured player?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you might be a star player now, but you could be injured in a month. How
I,
are
I
they going to treat you?
I
Right?
think that is perfect. I I think that is absolutely perfect. How do you get treated outside of being the star on the field? And I as a quick example from that, I want to give a shout out to the University of Iowa, not just because we're in Iowa, but man, I remember Jack Dreyer. Started his career at Iowa hot, got injured, but Iowa stuck with him. Iowa said, "Hey, we're going to put as much into your development still as we possibly can, along with your health and getting you back and getting you right." And hey, guess what? He is now on the 40-man roster for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And so it is again. If you got the chance to check out our last High and Tight, we went ahead and broke that announcement, but it is absolutely imperative. Now, there are just some places that, Chad won't do that. We'll be honest, won't do that. And so that I love how you brought up that point. How do guys that aren't right now starring in a lead role, how are they viewing the program? How are injured players viewing the program? And I would even go as far as to say, you know what, players who moved on, if you can get the chance, how did their experience impact what they're doing now? Was it a good experience or not? Certainly, I don't think you're going to go to rival coaches and get any of that stuff, but I think
Right.
going to guys who probably have moved on, more specifically from JUCO to the next level, what their experience was. I know I know we've had a couple of guys on here that have talked about that on this very segment, that have talked about what it has meant for them to go the JUCO route, and just kind of have those different experiences.
Yeah, I think it may be difficult to get those questions answered. Um, you know, not all colleges offer overnight
Yeah.
experiences, but if you can find a way to have one, you're going to hear from the players while you're there what it's like.
Yeah.
And you're going to hear things that maybe aren't on the company line, so to speak. And I think those are, if you really want to dig deep into a program, that's where you got to go. And it's not easy to do, and it's time consuming, but if you really want to know, I mean, it's a big investment going to these schools, and it's an investment in time and energy and family resources and all of those things. So, taking the opportunities to really dig into the program that you can, and then you have a pretty good idea that where you are where you belong. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying don't take any risk at all, right? You need to take a risk. That's all part of it. Sometimes you're going to go into a situation where you don't know everything that you need to know, and sometimes it turns out really well, and other times it may not.
Hmm.
But you got to take the risk, and you just got to know
Yeah.
um,
Well, and to
where you,
go
you got
ahead.
to know that risk is present.
Yeah, and there is always risk there, and I think too, one of the things that I really enjoyed with the conversation that you and I have had, and that we've had here on the segment, is definitely make sure that you are following all the right steps, and the rules of recruiting, all of that. I know sometimes you get flustered or get excited and things happen. You just you make sure, one, you and I have talked about it. Yeah, social media. Let's make sure we go light on that until we have actually made the commitment there, or things like that. Make sure that you're following the right rules. I think it's also easy to you get in the moment, you just it just you get excited, right? You get excited. You go to one of the camps, you talk with some of you get in front of the coaches anyway, and then things kind of, you get ahead of yourself, all that kind of stuff. I think being in the right mental mindset in the grand scheme of things is also very important too. But you got to follow the rules. You still got to go through with things. And I think the biggest thing, Chad, is know what the rules are before, because sometimes you may find out, hey, this isn't the fit for me right now. This isn't where I'm best to go. I need to know what are the rules. And I think it's best for everybody to, even if you think you're going to be there for the long haul, I think it's best for people to understand, hey, what are the rules if I need to get out? If I want to go out, if I need to leave, what are the steps I have to take? Because in the end, if you do leave, I mean, you kind of want it to be in the end, the program is going to have to move on then, right? They're going to have to look and find a different way. So if you're not careful, if you don't do your due diligence beforehand and know the rules and know the different signs behind it, then you could get caught in a situation where you're still stuck in the same place, and you've told the program basically, I don't want to be here, and they're not going to be the ones to put you on the field.
Right. I think, and this kind of, we haven't had a overlap with what I do on a daily basis, but when we're working with, so here's a good opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're not lawyers, but we tend to have experience in that area, speaking about contracts and speaking about agreements. with our clients or with a vendor that we're introducing to our clients or something like that. And whenever we're working with a client, we're always thinking about the sure, the initial engagement is important, but the how does the end of it look,
Mm-hmm.
right? What we're talking about an estate plan or a financial plan or an investment that has a term that's associated with it. We're looking at, okay, what could possibly happen? We're looking at all those scenarios and we're trying to understand what the end looks like before we've begun, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if there are too many onerous things involved in the end process, then it's not a good fit, right?
Yep.
And so I think that that's important. You're entering into an agreement with whatever school it is that you're choosing. Maybe you're a scholarship, or maybe you're not. Maybe there's NIL money, maybe there isn't. You know, maybe it's a junior college, maybe it's NAIA, maybe it's NCAA. All of those different organizations have different rules, and it's important if you're going down the NCAA, the junior college route, then you need to understand those rules
Yes.
because that might be important for you to understand those rules of how to go from one junior college to another if you don't find that works for you, or an NAIA school or an NCAA school. Can you move? Uh, it's very important to know and understand what's going on there, and because this isn't what you do every single day, looking at these commitment letters or contracts or what have you, it's not a bad idea to have somebody in your corner who is familiar with this stuff and has been through it. And so I would encourage you to talk with your high school coach.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Yes.
high school coach is going to have some potential resources. Find somebody at the state of Iowa. Talk to somebody at the state of Iowa. I don't know if the state of Iowa has resources for their athletes. Um, if they don't have resources for their athletes, they can probably direct you to somebody who might have a good idea and maybe can give you some advice about what does all of this mean,
Yep.
these agreements, right?
Yeah.
I want to say my son's scholarship contract was 6 or 7 pages in length.
Yeah.
There were a lot of different things on there. We could read through them. Took a little bit of time. I asked some questions of our high school coach. He was able to advise me of some things. Found some resources online as well.
Mm-hmm.
So um, it's important to use your resources and understand what you can and can't do.
Yep. Exactly. And it's also to your point as well, make sure you know if you jump from one thing to another, right? If you're going to jump from JUCO to Division 1, what that means for eligibility, all those kind of stuff. Also, if you find yourself in the need to jump the other way, and what it means to go into a D3, D2 situation as well. There's a lot of great programs out there. And so again, it's just important for well ahead of time because you get into the thick of it, the weeds. Some of the last things you're going to think about are the boring, gritty rules that you have to still follow by, and so it will impact where you can go and what you can do. So again, it's just mindset. Got to play it right. In the end, and to wrap this up in a bow, man, you got to just make sure that that you have options out there, but also the program you're at currently has options as well. So don't limit yourself. Keep things going. Keep things strong. Otherwise, you could get lost in it, and nobody owes you anything. Right? Go out there. You do you. Because Chad, I think you're the one that said it to me. These programs are giving you opportunities for sure, but until you're on campus there, You don't necessarily, uh, there's not a whole lot of anybody owing anybody anything, right? You still have to look out for you in the end, and the programs, if they're decent enough, will understand that.
Right, right. And
So,
I don't know that any coach is going to hold your feet to the fire, but that coach may say, "Hey, this kid made a commitment. We had him on scholarship, and he bailed." I mean, there's the perception that
mm,
you got to worry about. So that's one thing that you have to you always have to know what the narrative is, what
yep,
the coach's narrative might be versus what your family's narrative might be, and you're gonna have to there's always two sides to a story, right?
yeah, that's right.
So, but on that note, let's talk about something that's maybe not as serious.
There you go.
I want to get your take. I want to get your take on the Hall of Fame,
Right,
because
right.
I'm, I'm sure I'm sure you're on that committee. You got to vote, don't you?
Oh, you know what?
They the Baseball Writers Association, have they given you a vote?
You know, Chad, I've asked, and apparently I don't have enough weight to throw around there. But don't worry. Once they see this episode, I think I'll be in the mix. Don't you worry. I have hope.
Okay.
Well, again, um, sorry to cover up things here. Limited space on my view here, but here we go. We have as we can bring up the Hall of Fame look as Chad, as you mentioned too. On the left side, you have the newcomers to the 2025 Hall of Fame ballot, and you have returnees to the 2025 Hall of Fame ballot. And so, yeah, I'm very interested. I wanted to dive in here first and foremost. I wanted to dive into the ballot, the newcomers, right? Because Chad, we always have this conversation every year. There's always a conversation on who could be a guy, who could be a first ballot into the Hall of Fame. I mean, you look at a lot of these guys, and I got to ask you first and foremost, what is your take on on these new faces that we see there? Do we have anybody in your mind that would get the 70 plus percent threshold? Do you see anybody that would make the list? Who stands out to you when it comes to the new crop we've got here?
Yeah, so a lot of great names on this list.
Yeah.
I think one stands out to me, and I'm really biased in my picks with this stuff, so I'm just gonna put
We're
that
getting to the root
disclaimer
of
out
it
there.
here, Chad. We're getting to the root of it.
Okay, so Ichiro is a first ballot Hall of Famer, no question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, um, I saw him play when I lived in Japan. I have home video of him hitting a home run in
No.
Japan,
We got to get that
and
video, Chad. You've been holding out on me.
yeah. Well, I get it's on VHS-C. If that tells you how long ago this was, so so it might take me a little bit to get that one into digital form.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
So here's a guy 3,000 plus hits. If you take his Japanese statistics into account, a few thousand more to go with it. And I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I've been saying that for a long time, even before he retired from baseball. And I have a Ruth's Chris steak dinner on that. I've got a bet with one of my longtime buddies. So
For
I
steak
I am
dinner.
rooting for an Ichiro first ballot Hall of Famer because I'm going to enjoy that steak dinner.
Hey, go get it, right? If hey, and I'm with you there. You know, the guy in the end, when you talk about for me, I like man, what's a Hall of Fame guy? And what gets you, what guarantees for me your vote into the Hall of Fame right off the bat? You know, for me, a guy that one, what is your, I first go to hits. What are you doing? How did you do it with a basic stat like hits, right? And Suzuki, He's 25th all time. I mean, the guy is in the likes of Dave Winfield, Tony Gwynn, Adrian Beltre, Eddie Murray, Pujols, Molitor, all those guys. He is in the top 25 of that. And for me, again, you're one of the few who has hit over 1,000. I mean, you have already gone above guys like Frank Robinson, Keeler, Barry Bonds, Clemente. So you've already hit above that. And he was, even into his later stages of his career, man, could he hit well. And so I think you're right there. I like Suzuki, and I think he's a no doubter. I think Felix Hernandez has to be considered pretty heavily when you think about getting into the Hall of Fame as well. And I know that's two Seattle guys, but hey, make I think you can make it happen. And it is hard because you see all these names on here: McCann, Jones, Zobrist. We had Zobrist on the show a while back, and great guys. They are absolute phenomenal. But man, I got to ask you here, Chad. Is there anybody else besides Suzuki in this newcomer ballot that you feel is deserving of a first time bid?
No. Just going to cut right to the chase and say no to that as much as it hurts me. I mean, Ben Zobrist, I mean, who doesn't love Ben Zobrist? This guy could play all over the place.
Yeah,
He's a classy dude. Um, wow, what a phenomenal ball player for a long time. He was your Swiss Army knife,
yep,
right? The other guys, they're all quality ball players, absolutely. Um, my dark horse, he's not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He may not get on until he's considered in the what do they call it? I'm not sure if it's called the seniors ballot, but the
oh
uh,
the Veterans Committee. Yep.
yeah, the Veterans Committee. Like he might get on the because of the Veterans Committee. I think probably Zobrist and Pedroia are probably Veterans Committee guys. Um, I would like to see Pedroia in the Hall because he, if not for his injury, which was not his fault, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying anybody's injury is, it wasn't because his body broke down. It's because of a dirty play that he was no longer able to play baseball. And we can all thank Manny Machado for it. I said it. I said it out loud on a recording.
There you go.
Manny doesn't know me; he'll never know me. But I will never forgive him for ending Pedroia's career. So Dustin Pedroia, Rookie of the Year, followed up by an MVP season, along with a World Series win, breaking the curse for the Red Sox. Sun Devil, I saw him play mini games. I was living in Phoenix back then and saw him play a lot of ball games. And that guy put up multiple hits pretty much every time I saw him play. It was amazing to watch him play college baseball. He was head and shoulders above everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
it truly was.
but as a professional, he was checking all the boxes a Hall of Famer would need to check, and his story was cut short. And so I hope that he gets in someday, whether it's via regular ballot or by uh, the committee putting him
Yeah.
on later on. So
Hey,
those would be my two of the newcomers that I'm really pulling for.
yeah, and I like how you brought the dark horse in here. I like I'm with you. Growing up with in the era of like Ian Kinsler, I loved Ian Kinsler. I loved Dustin Pedroia. Those were big time guys, and I think Ben Zobrist is a part of that will eventually be a Hall of Famer in my estimation. I think that it depends on who's coming up in the next several years. But I believe even Curtis Granderson could make his way in there as a surprise. But for me, the dark horse I think is CC Sabathia. He's my dark horse, and I say that simply because you look at for me, I remember Jack Morris and his induction into the Hall of Fame had a lot of controversy around it, primarily due to the ERA. Right, that ERA was one of the highest ERAs, is the highest ERA that has been in the Hall of Fame, and I believe that if CC Sabathia were to get in there, because his ERA ended with 3.74, and I don't think Morris's was quite that high off the top of my head. But CC Sabathia would be close, if not the highest ERA in the game. Yet I mean, what did I talk about earlier with in terms of in terms of hits, Ichiro top 25 in hits. CC Sabathia currently stands 18th in all-time strikeouts right now, and he is one of just 19 guys to have 3,000 or more strikeouts. So so in that sense, I mean, you're with guys like Pedro Martinez, Necro, Maddox, and of course, there's two living legends right now in Verlander and Scherzer that are rocking it still. But what you have here is, I think Sabathia is that dark horse to get in there. But that's a dark horse. I'm with you there. I think a lot of these guys are gonna be in there. Actually, let me take that back here. I only believe about maybe half of this field will enter the Hall of Fame, and that is the newcomers. One thing I find, Chad, is we tend to have nostalgia glorify a lot of what these guys are. And for me, like Carlos Gonzalez and Troy Tulowitzki, they were great guys. But and I know we don't want to hold injuries against them, but they just didn't have the careers, right? I mean, Adam Jones, I can see making it in, but Gonzalez, Tulowitzki, Rodney, even Russell Martin, they're really good players. Even McCann, but are they Hall of Famers? I think we lose the distinction. We need to put Hall of Famers as being absolute head and shoulders above the best. Did you have a year or several years where you were better or in the top five of anybody else in the game? And I know I can say that about CC. I know I can say that about Ichiro. I know that Felix Hernandez I can say that with. But then beyond that, even with Zobrist and others, do I feel like I can say like they were the best at one point? I don't know. Certainly with some of these, I even Kinsler, I don't think I can say that. So I think, especially when it comes to first time Hall of Fame ballot, we all need to look at it and say, hey, are they going to be on par with the likes of, say, Tony Gwynn? And I know Tony Gwynn's in a league all his own. But are we close to that? Are we gonna look down the line and say, oh, you're 753rd in terms of total hits or extra base hits? No, right? I mean, you have to be able to go with the Carews and the Hendersons of the world. You have to be able to match up with some of their numbers in order to be, because that's who you're putting in with them, right? I hate the facts,
Right.
and I know I'm on a tangent here. I'll end it soon, but I hate the fact that we have guys that like, oh, this guy was really good here, but we come to find that his hit total or his extra base total or this was was far less than half of anybody currently in the Hall of Fame. So you're either going to dilute the Hall of Fame or you're going to keep it to where it needs to be. These guys are premier, and we need to put people in there that are also premier.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And you have one Cy Young, two guys Rookie of the Year on here that just at the maybe one of these other guys was, and I'm not remembering. But and then I think Ichiro was an MVP at one
Yeah,
season.
yeah,
But
exactly.
there are plenty of former MVPs that are not in the hall,
Right.
right?
Exactly. And some of them right now, as we put up on the returnee ballot that we have here, some of these guys have been MVPs, such as Torrey Hunter, A Rod, Manny. I mean, in the end here, that's also one thing you have to look at. And I wanted to put up the newcomer list before this because now if you were to say to me like, oh yes, I would definitely put Hanley or Kinzer or Martin in, and now I go, okay, who are they going up against? And you got Billy Wagner, who I think is going to get in here. I mean, you got the Philly duo of Rollins and Utley, and that's without mentioning Andrew Jones and Abreu and Hunter. I think could easily get in here. So now it's like, okay, the first ballot Hall of Famers, I think Ichiro truly is the only one who has a legitimate chance, or that I would vote for. But now you get into some of these returnees here, and I don't know about you, Chad. It makes it, I get really, really challenged right now when I look at the returnee ballot.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there are a lot of names on this returnee ballot that you know they they should be in, but there's just a couple of things that Okay, you got Aroyd. Should he go in? You know, I mean, maybe if you got in trouble one time for performance enhancing drugs, but
Yeah.
2 times, not very well liked.
Nope.
Manny Ramirez, the way his career ended with the shenanigans,
Yep.
that gets in the way. Um, for pitchers, it's pretty hard. I mean, Billy Wagner, man, he was good for a while. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
K
And
Rod, K
yeah.
Rod out in California, man, he was unstoppable for a few seasons. You know,
Yeah.
Andy Pettit probably deserves to be in. Um,
Yep.
David Wright's probably not going to get there because of injury. Torrey Hunter and Andrew Jones, they're kind of the same player almost. With phenomenal gloves in center field.
Yeah.
Beltran's probably should be in. I'm not sure if he got to 3,000.
As we take a look at that Beltran, I mean, no, I with his mark, yeah, there's only a few people that made it to 3,000. 33 in the end. 33 individuals made it to 3,000. Suzuki, again, as we mentioned earlier, 25th on that list. And then you go there. Yeah, you're not.
Yeah, Beltran was at 2,725 hits.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if you look at his WAR, wins above replacement at
mhm,
70.1. I mean, that shows you how productive he was. 435 home runs, 9-time All Star. He was a Rookie of the Year. Won a World Series in 2017.
mhm,
So that's a pretty good resume. 3 Gold Gloves, Clemente Award winner, and a 2-time Silver Slugger. I mean, he's right. He's going to get in Veterans Committee for sure, but he probably deserves to go in being voted in by the sports writers.
yeah, I'm with you there. And I think guys like Omar Vizquel also has, it kind of has that kind of that sense about it. Like, man, he could be overlooked pretty easily, but in the end, he's a guy that was constantly up there. I mean, in the end, he's a top 50 hitter, and when it comes to career hits overall, not quite a 3,000 hitter, but he was close to that. And in the end, if we're still thinking Barry Bonds at this point, and he wasn't even that far away from Frank Robinson, who's gotten a lot of who's he's been a big name thrown around there as well. And so this is where I think the conversation really gets like I said, gets really hot and heavy. I I love I think Torrey Hunter for me has the Torrey Hunter and Andrew Jones have played pivotal roles. And again, I go back to the Jack Morris look and say, in the end, it is a lot of the numbers that you bring, but also how big were you a part of MLB history at a certain point? Because it is the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Numbers. Hall of the
Right.
numbers do mean a lot, and I would say they are the numbers that you put up. It make up for over 50% of why you're in there. But you also, I think, have to put in that Torrey Hunter he was at the top of his game. He was a top tier guy for how long? And he was a big pivotal role for the Twins. Andrew Jones the same way. Manny especially on that as well. I really, I'm a Braves fan. I'll admit that, but I loved Carlos Beltran and David Wright. I just don't think that they have met that threshold. And Jimmy Rollins is a questionable for me. Chase Utley questionable. Uh, I mean, I think in the end they get there though. I do like how they put up there. Burley, I like him. I don't know if he gets in. And so I think true. I think we have to look at some of those big guys that are already established in there, and go, okay. I mean, how did they hold up to the lowest of them? And so I again, I think a lot of those guys that I mentioned, you can't write the history of the game during their time without them. That's why I'm a big proponent of why Pete Rose needs to be in. I'm a big proponent of I've been that way for a long time, and even Barry Bonds to be in because you can't write the history of the game without them in there during that time. And with Manny Ramirez, Torrey Hunter, Andrew Jones, you can't write the history without them in there. Some of these other
Yep.
guys with A Rod, the steroid thing's going to haunt him, and I think he's put out of the conversation because of that. But yeah, I truly like I like Hunter, I like Jones, I like Ramirez, the others and Wagner, I should say. The others, I go, man, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can give that nod. If I was the voter, I don't know if I could give them enough of my confidence to get in there.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Pete Rose because I've had my thoughts about Pete Rose,
Mm-hmm.
and I know my thoughts are not unique. There are other people that have similar thoughts that I do. And the issue surrounding Pete Rose was that he didn't admit it right away. That was a problem.
Yeah.
But the other thing that didn't help, that really harmed his ability to make an argument to get into the Hall of Fame, was that Bartlett Giamatti passed away shortly after banning Pete Rose for his lifetime from
Mm-hmm.
baseball. And I think, out of respect for Bartlett Giamatti, uh, they've kept that ban in place.
Yep.
And now both men are dead. And I would hope that if the baseball writers have the ability to write in somebody, that they just all write in Pete Rose.
Yeah.
Let's put him in.
Yeah.
He's in his grave. God rest his soul. Put him into the hall. It's time.
Yeah. It is time, Chad. It is by far time because it's when we talk about Pete Rose, we're not sitting here going, man, the guy who is 72nd in hits needs to be in the Hall of Fame. We're not talking about the guy who is 15th in career hits. We're not talking about even the fifth guy in career hits. We're talking about a guy whose number one career hits record will, I believe, never be broken. I believe that we'll never find a guy in the three true outcome stage that we are currently in right now in baseball. I do not believe we will come even close to that mark. And I believe that when you take a look at it, you go, yes, what he did was wrong. What he did was wrong. right? But it's the one Hall of Fame, and he is always going to be the guy that's number one in career hits. He is always going to be a guy that has been huge in big moments of when he was around. He is always going to be that. And right now, it's just people. You're what you brought up is perfect. No commissioner right now wants to be the one to break that line. And but there's no other legs for anybody to stand on with that, I believe. And the guy's gone now. Get him in the Hall of Fame. He has the Hall of Fame numbers. He has been the top echelon while he was playing, and it's at this point you go, if you're voting against Pete Rose at this point, you're just doing it based on tradition. You're not doing it based off of merit, and you're ruining the integrity of why you're voting for people in the first place. So, I love how you brought that up here too, Chad, and I agree. He just got caught in a bad situation with bad timing, and I believe he deserves to be in. But you know, that's a little bit of my rant there. But ultimately, I'll bring back as we final wrap things up here. Both lists here, and again, Chad and I, Chad, you and I agree. Ichiro definitely getting in here. Um, is there anybody else that you think that return on this list here? Is there anybody who you think could be a dark horse on the returning list before we wrap up?
Oh boy. Well, Manny's got over 500 home runs. Andy Pettit's got a lot of rings. Andrew Jones has got 10 gold gloves.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of reasons why some of these guys need to be in. Billy Wagner, I'm not sure how many saves he has, but it's hundreds. I know
Yeah,
that. So probably Abreu is not going to be on there, former MVP.
yeah,
K Rod probably didn't last long enough. Omar Vizquel, despite all the gold gloves, probably not going to do it. David Wright, too many injuries.
mm-hmm.
Jimmy Rollins, probably not good enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Manny gets in. Maybe Andrew Jones gets in. The thing about Torrey Hunter is no World Series, right?
That's true. But how? But do you, Chad? I mean, how much do you put it against somebody for being on a team like the Twins? Just there are times where they just choked. I'll be honest here. They they had some really good teams that just could not find a way there. So how much do you think voters look at that?
Well, I think if it's somebody who's on the border, it sure helps if you won a World Series. It sure helps.
Yeah.
So for some guys like a Torrey Hunter, man, he might. But if you put him up against Harold Baines's numbers, better numbers than Harold Baines, probably
See,
a
and
better
that
ball player than Harold Baines,
and
right?
that's what. Yeah.
But
I yeah. Go ahead.
part of what my understanding of these of why of how the baseball writers vote is how did you perform against your peers? That's what they're supposed to be. I believe that's what they're supposed to be focused on.
Mm-hmm.
So to say, well, Jack Morris is in, so therefore CC Sabathia should be in. You know, those guys were gamers. They won World Series. That's why Jack Morris is in because of how he performed in the postseason. CC Sabathia was great in the postseason. He won a lot of. He pitched very well in the postseason in his career. That's something else that you can put you over the top, and that's clear with Jack Morris being in the Hall. If it wasn't for his postseason performances, he wouldn't be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. It's funny. You mentioned Harold Baines, and I've never been one to love him in the Hall of Fame. I think that he was, for my taste, one of the best average hitters you could ever have. Uh, the argument for him was a lot of consistency, and I think that voters
Yep.
do look at that and say, he was
Yep.
consistent. I mean, he's had more hits than Chipper Jones, who's a Hall of Famer. So
Yep.
I get that. Um, I just there are times where I look at it and go, I I wish that I wish that more individual merit could come into play, but I agree. In the end, you do have to take for account what happened postseason because you get into postseason now you're not playing anybody who's bad, right? Your postseason everybody's good, so you got to really up your game there. And how well do you do in the postseason? I think has to add to it, and I think in the end, I think it's a matter of you get in the Hall of Fame early or you get in the Hall of Fame later. I think that's where that should be. I think guys who are writing that should always be in the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame. I think with Jack Morris and Baines, I think that's where people have started to go. Okay, so am I opening the door for other guys? Other guys
Yep.
who have been in there, and so I agree. So I don't know. I like as much as I say Billy Wagner. I'd love Billy Wagner, but Rodriguez, uh, Francisco Rodriguez, I should say. He's a guy that I look at, and he's had more saves than Billy Wagner, but Billy Wagner's gotten a lot of attention. So
Yep.
where do you kind of rank them there? But yeah, man, it can get pretty dicey here. I in the end I don't envy the chance because in the end I mean you're gonna get people that are unhappy about it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's just another way of having something to talk about. And Major League Baseball loves it that this is something that people talk about every year, and the ballots out, and it's it's uh, it's always something of interest, right? And because it brings everything out, gambling on baseball, steroids, this guy misbehaved, this guy spit on an umpire, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff with all these players, and you just it's every single year it's discussion after discussion after discussion, and people are pretty passionate about it. But I suspect I'm the only thing that I'm going to have to talk about after January comes and goes is Ichiro Suzuki. I was right. I said it years ago. He's going to be his first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yep, yep. Count on it. Take it to the bank. Get that steak dinner out of it and enjoy.
You bet. You bet. Absolutely.
Well, perfect. Hey, and anybody else out there, add along to the conversation here. What do you think? Not just about the Hall of Fame, but about what we talked about earlier. In the pursuit of the game, what you should look out for, and more than that. So, hit us up. Hit us up here, iabaseball1 at gmail.com. Again, you can always hit us up there. Again, IA Baseball with the number one at gmail.com. I'll go ahead and put that up here for you. IA Baseball, and again, the number one at gmail.com. Go ahead and hit us up there, and you can go ahead and give us your thoughts, comments, and we'll go ahead on another segment of Prospect Planner. We'll talk about those. So get us that, and of course, hit us up social media wherever you can, RDA Financial as well. But Chad, hey, thanks for doing that. I think I don't get enough chance to do the Hall of Fame conversation, and that was really kind of cool. So appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. That I always enjoy talking about stuff like that, just talking baseball in general. So, good talking with you today, Andrew. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk again real soon.
Yes, we'll
Happy
do. And
Thanksgiving, everybody.
yes, everybody, happy Turkey Day. Don't let Christmas come before it. make it a happy Turkey Day and happy holidays. And until we see each other next time, folks, stay safe on the base paths. Thanks again. We'll see you later.